Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone, welcome back with me. I'm Kholidia Tamami. My student ID number is 2023-630017. In this video, I would like to answer several questions from my final exam of English, Semantics, and Pragmatics. So let's get started. Let's begin with the first question. What is semantics and why is it important in linguistics? Well, semantics is the branch of linguistics that studies meaning in language. It focuses on the meaning of words, phrases, and sentences without depending on a specific situation or context. In other words, semantics examines the knowledge of meaning that speakers have when they know a language. Semantics is important because communication would not be possible without meaning. By studying semantics, linguists can explain how people understand words and sentences, how meanings are related, and how language users interpret message. It also helps us avoid confusion and understand how meaning is organized in a language. Now, let's move on to the second question. What is pragmatics and how does it differ from semantics? Well, pragmatics is the branch of linguistics that studies how language is used in communication. It examines how people interpret and understand utterances by considering context, background knowledge, the relationship between speakers, and the situation in which an utterance is used. The main difference between semantics and pragmatics is that semantics studies the literal meaning of words and sentences, while pragmatics studies the meaning that speaker intend to communicate in a particular context. Semantics focuses on what language means by itself, whereas pragmatics focuses on what people mean when they use the language. For example, the sentence "It's cold here" semantically means that the temperature is low. However, pragmatically, it could mean that the speaker wants someone to close the window or turn off the air conditioner. The intended meaning depends on the context. After understanding the difference between semantics and pragmatics, let's continue to the third question. Can a sentence be semantically correct but pragmatically inappropriate? Provide examples. Well, yes, a sentence can be semantically correct but pragmatically inappropriate. This happens when the sentence is grammatically and semantically meaningful, but it is not suitable for the situation or context in which it's used. For example, if a teacher asks, "Can you help me carry these books?" and a student replies, "Yes, I can," without actually helping, the answer is semantically correct because it satisfies the student's ability. However, it is pragmatically inappropriate because the teacher's question is understood as a request for help, not a question about ability. Another example is saying, "Close the window" to a stranger in a formal meeting. The sentence is semantically correct, but it may sound impolite. A more appropriate expression would be, "Could you please close the window?" In these examples, the literal meaning is correct, but the intended meaning and social context are not fully considered. Therefore, the problem is pragmatic rather than semantic. Now, let's discuss the fourth question. Why do misunderstandings often arise from pragmatic rather than semantic issues? Well, misunderstanding often arise from pragmatic issues because people usually understand the literal meaning of words and sentences, but they may interpret the speaker's intention differently. Pragmatic interpretation depends on context, background knowledge, and the assumption shared by the speaker and the listener. For example, if someone say, "It is getting late," the literal meaning is clear. However, the speaker may actually mean, "We should go home now," or "Please finish what you are doing." If the listener does not understand this intended meaning, a misunderstanding can occur. Pragmatic misunderstandings are common because pragmatic inferences are based on guesses about what the speaker wants to communicate. Different people may interpret the same utterance in a different ways depending on the context and their background knowledge. Moving on to the fifth question. To what extent does context determine meaning in everyday communication? Well, context plays a very important role in determining meaning in everyday communication. The same sentence can have different meanings depending on the situation, the people involved, and the background knowledge they share. Without context, it is often difficult to understand exactly what a speaker means. In pragmatics, context helps people identify references, understand ambiguous expressions, and interpret the speaker's intended meaning. For example, the sentence, "That was the last bus," can mean different things in different situations. It may refer to the final bus of the night or the previous bus that left a station. The correct interpretation depends on the context. Therefore, context strongly determines meaning in everyday communication because people don't rely on the literal meaning of words. They also use information from the situation and their knowledge of the word to understand what is being communicated. Finally, let's move on to the last question. What are the challenges of translating semantic and pragmatic meaning between language? Well, translating semantic and pragmatic meaning between language can be challenging because language don't always express meaning in the same way. Some word or expression in one language may not have exact equivalent in another language. As a result, the semantic meaning may change or become less precise. Another challenge is pragmatics. Different language and cultures have different ways of expressing politeness, indirectness, humor, or implied meanings. A sentence that sounds natural and appropriate in one language may sound strange or even rude in another language if the context is not considered. For example, an English speaker may say, "Could you open the window?" as a polite request. If it is translated only by focusing on the literal meaning and not the pragmatic intention, the message may lose its level of politeness in the target language. Therefore, translators need to understand both the literal meaning of words and the intended meaning in context. Successful translation requires attention to both semantic and pragmatic so that the message can be understood correctly by the target audience. Well, that's all from me. Thank you for attention. Thank you for watching my video. Apologies for my mistake, especially for my grammar and my pronunciation. And don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. See ya!